Hello, welcome to a special Adult Swim Con edition of Toonami Pre-Flight, where Gill, Austin, and I, who are the people who run Toonami, have the distinct pleasure of interviewing the voice of Tom, Steve Blum. Hello, Steve.
What?
We are
Hey,
going to
buddy.
ask Steve a bunch of questions, a lot of personal ones, a lot of less personal ones, and just talk to him a little bit about the man, the legend, the voice actor, friend of the show, voice of Tom, his life.
Uh,
So
this could
let's
go
get it started.
horribly wrong.
So I think the question everybody asks voice actors is how you got into the business. So we'll save that one for a little bit.
Okay.
But when you were a little kid, there's no one on earth that I've ever met. I mean, maybe Don LaFontaine was like this, but I've
Yeah.
never met anyone who said, when I was a child, I dreamed of being a voiceover artist.
Mm-mm.
It's almost always something people stumble into. So when you were a kid, what did you think you were going to grow up to be?
Well, first of all, I'm still stumbling through it. And yeah, when I was a kid, I think originally I wanted to be a scientist, an oceanographer specifically. I loved anything to do with the ocean, and I was a big fan of Jacques Cousteau before a lot of your time. But he had this great show on every week, and I was just fascinated with the ocean and also terrified by it. So I kind of held on to that for a little while until I realized that there was math involved. And when I ultimately went to college, I went to my first year of college at UC San Diego, and they had Scripps Institute there. And I thought, wow, I'm right in the heart of where I want to be. And then I just realized, oh, I'm not smart enough for this. So I
did
had to
you
kind of
literally did you literally like fail classes, or did you just
oh
start?
yeah, oh yeah.
So it was like the chemistry part of the biology is where you started just saying, what the fuck is all the nucleotides and stuff like that? Or
Well, the problem was that when I was in middle school, they had this experimental math program. It was SSMCIS. I don't even remember what all that stood for, but basically it was an accelerated math program, and they tried to cram everything they could into a middle school thing, so that if it worked when you got into college, you'd be much better prepared. Well, it didn't work. They ended up canceling the program halfway through, and the classes were also really kind of screwed up. They didn't really know how to put things in a logical order. So I ended up doing Algebra 2 without really understanding Algebra 1. They kind of covered all of Algebra 1 in like 2 weeks. And so by that time, that was the downfall. And I thought, all right, well, I'm never going to use this anyway. I'm not going to worry about it. And then I get up into college and I see chemistry and physics and everything else that requires algebra. And I went, oh, this is bad. I should have fixed this a long time ago. So, yeah, so at that point, just to go backwards and to relearn all that stuff, it just wasn't worth it to me. And I just decided, maybe I can go back to that for fun later on and do core samples and volunteer or something. But that was it for me. And then my dad wanted me to be a doctor, because he was a doctor. He was a surgeon
whoa.
and urologist, which was definitely a part of the body I did not want to play with. So he had this booming practice, and he wanted me to go into it. And then eventually, because of HMOs and everything, he ended up selling a multi-million-dollar practice for like $30,000. So he kind of
Ooh,
went, "Shh, you dodged a bullet, and I'm glad you didn't go into medicine." And then I thought I wanted to be a musician, and
sure.
just because I was painfully shy and awkward and didn't know how to talk to girls, and I thought if I played guitar, this is my way in because all the rock stars get the girls. And so I played music for a while, and I tried that, and I played in an R&B band for years. Uh,
Hilarious.
Never was very good. We were the only R&B band in town, opening for heavy metal and hair bands.
What was
And
your band's name?
we changed the name of it so many different times because the guy who ran the band was just this wild man, and he had OCD and ADD and all the D's, and would just change the band name every few months. So we started out as the Race, and we had five different ethnicities in that band, which was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we expanded it out because we needed a bigger band, so we brought in a horn section, and then we called it Magnetic, I think. and then Ivory because that was his stage name, and then we changed it to the Ivory All Stars, and then we changed it to International Love Affair,
Nice.
and then we disbanded because all of our shit was stolen, and the
And
industry crushed
your
us.
guitar was your instrument,
Guitar was my instrument, yeah, and I played sax too for about 5 years.
and you
Um,
still play now, guitar now?
I play guitar now, yeah,
Yeah.
not well. I'm picking it up again though. I just
Yeah.
started taking a songwriting class because I have all these beautiful guitars mocking me on the walls, and I decided why not during the pandemic, especially. I
Yeah.
want to learn a new skill, and singing was always my downfall. I was never comfortable as a singer,
Yeah, you've
and
got a terrible voice. Clearly, no one wants to hear it.
well, it's a different animal for singing, though,
Yeah.
completely. I'm really confident with my voiceover chops, but for
Yeah.
singing, not so much.
I don't know.
It's
You could do a Leonard Cohen thing, I think, and it would work out pretty well.
maybe, yeah, yeah. I don't
You
know.
have to get more depressed
Maybe
and wear suits more, you know.
maybe Harvey Fierstein. I don't know.
Yeah,
That'd
exactly.
Yeah,
be nice.
just
Yeah,
channel your inner Tom Waits and you got it.
yeah. Tom Waits. That's more like it. Gravel and glass. Yeah.
So part of what you do now, and what people I think have you do a lot is just you have your voice, which obviously a lot of characters you do are somewhere in your normal range,
Hmm.
but then you also have monster voices and all kinds of crazy weird voices you like to do.
Hmm.
So when you are tapping into that, is that something that you did when you were a kid? I mean, I know when I was a kid, I used to make crazy voices all the time.
Hmm.
I don't have much of a professional reason to do it now, but
You could.
is that yeah, could scare Toonami employees? But is it something that you did when you were a kid and you're just tapping into that, or is it something you only found later when you were more comfortable as a voice actor?
Oh, in terms of the weird voices, I've been doing that since I was a little kid. In fact, that was the thing that kept me from getting bullied.
Oh, really?
When my voice started changing, yeah, because I used to get beaten up all the time. I was bullied a lot in school. I was just
Why?
this,
Why do you think? Just because you're
well,
small, or were you a smart
uh,
ass, or
I
You're
was
really
just
annoying. You just have
all of
one
that,
of those
yes.
faces.
All of that. One of those faces, the face you just want to punch, apparently. So I think it's just that I was not an aggressive little boy. I was really sensitive, and I was really into animals and talking about real stuff. I didn't really give a shit about sports because I had a lot of injuries when I was really young, and I couldn't do a lot of sports that I wanted to. And I also had flat feet, and I was just a crappy athlete. Um, but
yeah,
I don't know why in particular me, but I was bullied a lot. And so when my voice started dropping, especially in middle school, I kind of used that to stay alive pretty much. And I would, the bullies that would typically beat the crap out of me, um, I'd have a hall pass to go to the bathroom or something from class, and I'd hear the bullies roaming around in the hallway looking for people to mess with. And I would just kind of duck around the corner and I'd say, "Boys, go back to class." And they go, "Ah!" And I got to watch bullies squeal like little girls. It was fantastic. So I realized that that was kind of a powerful thing, and it also made people laugh when could do weird characters. And so I just started exploring that and playing with it, never realizing that that could ever be parlayed into a career.
yeah,
And I think when I first noticed that the voices were effective in making people happy, or at least changing somebody's attitude, was when I first got an answering machine, the ones with the old little cassette
yeah.
tapes. And I just did this really stupid, goofy impression for my outgoing message. And somebody had heard it, somebody who made a wrong number phone call accidentally heard that message, and I just hear his response as he's laughing in the background. He goes, "Oh shit, you got to hear this!" And he click, and he calls back a couple seconds later. I guess he just hit redial. Had his friends call, and all these people I didn't know started calling my house. And after a couple weeks, they said, "All right, it was fun listening to Goofy. What else you got?" And so I just started changing that up, and I started. It just started that little thing in my brain unlocking the possibilities of what I could do vocally. Still never thinking that could ever be a career. I was still very deeply into trying to make the music thing work at that point.
So at what point did the feeling that you knew how to do that connect with the idea that it could be a career? Like, what was the moment where you thought, oh yeah, I can try this.
That was probably 5 years after I started doing professional voice work. Because
Wow.
the first 4 or 5 years I was doing anime, I started with the Guyver and did a bunch of anime. And it was actually after Cowboy Bebop that we were doing some kind of panel somewhere. I don't remember where it was. And I was sitting with Mary Elizabeth, my fiance,
Yeah.
Mary
Nice.
Elizabeth McGlynn.
Congrats.
And thank you, yeah. And I was sitting with a bunch of other actors from the show, and they were just asking about the humble beginnings of Cowboy Bebop. And I was saying that, it was really intimidating for me and intimidating for me to be up there at that moment with real actors because these guys were all studied, classically trained actors. And she goes, wait, wait, wait. What the hell do you think you've been doing for the last 5 years? And she was my director on a lot of these anime shows.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's voice acting. That's not really acting. She goes, no, it's acting, you idiot. That's that people do this for a living. And I just did it for fun on the side for a long time. And I had a full career. I was head of marketing at a film company, and I had a really good income. And voice acting was really the only thing that made me happy at that time. So I thought, well, I booked the 7-Eleven commercials where I was the guy who said, oh, thank heaven. And at that point, I thought, all right, maybe I can make money at this because people who do commercials are rich. And and so I quit my job. I quit my six-figure job at the film company to do voiceover full time. And then the union went on strike, and I was out of work for a year and a half.
Oh, God.
And
That's
I had to get like
rough
three other
timing.
jobs to supplement. So there was a whole lot of suck, but it also made me realize through that time having to work three other jobs just to support my voiceover habit that
Yeah.
voiceover was the thing that still made me happy every time I went into that booth. And then I thought, I don't care if I don't make a big living at it. This is what I want to do. And now that I'm teaching, that's the first thing I tell my students is do what makes you happy and then do everything else you need to do to support that. And your
Yeah.
life is going to change. It really makes a difference.
And for just to take it back, you've been the voice of Tom from Toonami for since God, what, 98, 99? What is it, Gil? What year?
No
Uh,
idea. I thought it was
yeah, I think it's
2000, wasn't it?
2000.
It might be 2000.
2000, yeah.
It just feels
Because
like a long time ago.
yes,
So
Sonny was doing it just before that, I think,
Yeah.
which I didn't know at the time. Sorry, Sonny.
So we hired you because we liked your work in Cowboy Bebop and the Big O, and we thought that guy has a cool sounding voice. He sounds like the older brother that when we imagine our audience of young people, we thought that sounds like the cool older brother who will tell you, what you need to know with the minimum of bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
um, so what was it like? I don't think we've really asked you this before, but what was it like when we called you? Like, please be completely honest. When we called you and said, "So we got this show, and it's a robot, and you're hosting, and you're going to talk about all this anime, you're going to do these game reviews," like, what were you thinking about that role when it came in, and how does it feel now, having played it for so long?
Well, first of all, I thought you had the wrong number because I thought I was woefully unqualified for that job. I had never done anything like that as a host for something. I felt like I was faking it through everything I was doing at the time anyway. And I thought, oh my God, these really guys, really? But I think you offered me beer. I
Yeah,
think that was the first thing. I think we had a beer somewhere. It was at some convention, I think, maybe
yeah.
Anime Expo
Oh
or
yeah, I think it was Anime Expo.
yeah. And so we met for the first time, and I thought, well, hell yeah, I'd want to do that, but I'm terrified, and I don't know if I can do. I don't know if I'm qualified to do this. That was my first thought. But I anime was my home. I love the whole pitch. I love the whole idea of what you guys are doing, and I was really just terrified that I'd screw it up. Honestly,
Yeah.
that was my first thing. As I was really afraid that I'd screw it up, and I remember walking into the actual studio the first time to record, and it was a whole different kind of process than I had been exposed to before that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, anime it's a much looser environment, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think I went into Davis Glick, if I remember right, back then
Oh yeah.
for the
Okay.
first sessions, and I walked into that, or maybe it was no, it was another studio before that. I don't remember which one it was, but I think you were using Peter Cullen for some stuff at the time,
Yeah.
really early on. And I just saw a stack of papers. I think he had been in the studio before me, and I saw a stack of papers from him with his name on it. I thought, oh my God, Peter Cullen was just here. And then I saw another stack of papers that said Don LaFontaine. He had been
Yeah.
there for a session earlier that morning. I'm like, oh my God, these are real guys who really do this. Oh my God, I'm going to screw this up so hard. And but you guys were just so kind from the very beginning, and you were patient and worked with me, and Sean was there also at the time, and
Yep.
just patient, and you guys knew what you wanted, and you heard something in my voice that I didn't hear, and I was just so grateful for it. I was grateful for the opportunity to even try.
Yeah, we knew pretty much right when we first got the footage in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gil, but it's my recollection that as soon as we had your voice matched to the video, we thought, there was this sense of like, oh, this is going to work out, because we were really scared about what we were doing in terms of moving on from Sonny, who had established this new character, and who we liked working with and is a great guy.
Hmm.
But we knew that when we quote unquote killed Tom the first time, now that you've experienced Tom's death another time or
Yeah.
two, we knew that when we killed him, we wanted a voice that felt a little older. And so we knew we wanted a voice more like yours that was a little more gravelly. You weren't as gravelly then as you kind of are now,
Hmm.
but it was still much more gravelly as compared to Sonny. But we were still worried, like, is this voice like too cool guy? Like, we weren't sure, but when we saw it, I just remember feeling very relieved, like, oh, this is going to work out fine. Like,
Hmm.
this guy's going to work. Is
Well, and
that
you
your
you
recollection,
guys gave
Gil?
me a little piece of advice that informed everything. Can
Oh
I say
yeah,
that on here?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I
yeah,
can
yeah,
say that on
yeah.
here. Oh,
Sure.
yeah. For you guys who don't know out there, they told me to imagine that I was saying "you fuck" after every line, and that changed Tom's attitude for me and just dialed him in so quickly. We always look for a launch pad to get into a voice, especially if we hadn't
Yeah.
been doing it for a while. And that was the thing that just dialed me in every single time. I still use that occasionally.
He was very much created as a Gen Xer's idea of what a millennial older brother would be. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
now he's evolved, I think, more, and we've allowed him to be a little more sincere and a little
Yeah,
more soft.
yeah,
Might be one way of saying it.
yeah. I've dialed it back some. So
Yeah, because we used to go really hard on the like cool guy element of it.
yeah.
Somebody we had a meeting where we showed a bunch of Tom footage years later, and one of our coworkers was just gently ribbing us and was like, he said the vibe was like, "What's up, little dudes?" Like talking. And I mean, there's some truth in that. I'm not in any way sorry that we went that way, but there's a little truth in that.
Oh, it's hilarious, dude.
But I think it's
Hilarious.
interesting that Tom has sort of become more of, we've tried to bring him more into line with how people look at the world now, which is a little more unafraid to be sincere, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And not have to like hit everything so hard with snark.
yeah.
But so when you're out in the world and you're working and you're having to do so say like use your character on Rebels as an example.
Right.
You have so you are given a character and you're told this is what they're like. What is your process for coming up with that voice? Is it something you try with like a Dave Filoni or whoever in the room the first time, or do you kind of do it yourself and audition with a voice in mind, and then they accept it based on that audition? How does
Mm.
that work usually?
It's different for every project. Sometimes there's no time to do that. Sometimes I walk into the room, they have no idea what they want. They hand me a spec sheet, and I just barf out the first thing that comes to mind,
Hmm.
and it either works or doesn't work, and they give me three other ideas to try. Sometimes they'll give me some specs the night before or a couple days before, and I can practice up. There was a video game that I did called Dead Island a while ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and the character originally was supposed to be Caribbean, and so I spent the whole night before that researching Caribbean accents.
Right.
And I walk into the studio, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to go Australian. Go." And I went, "What? Oh, crap!" So sometimes it's just you gotta fly by the seat of your pants. Rebels is a really good example of one of those shows where we had time to massage that and figure out exactly what fit the character best. And they it was really important that we got that right too, because it was an original Ralph McQuarrie design for the Wookiee, the original
Oh,
Wookiee.
I didn't know
Oh, I
that.
know that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
in fact, they even made an action figure that looks just like Zeb, but with hair all over it. And
Crazy.
so they really wanted, because they were introducing that into canon, they wanted to make sure that this character resonated, and I think they tested it a little bit. But originally, I auditioned for that character with a heavy Cockney accent. But it was quite a whole, I understand. Yeah, it was that kind of thing where I really tucked everything in. And then got to final callbacks. I think it was on my third callback at Disney. And Filoni ran me through the paces. We tried, I think, German, Russian, Spanish, French. We tried a whole bunch of different types of accents from all over the UK. And we landed on something that was just sort of like a South London with a little Australian thrown in. And he said it doesn't have to be an accurate accent because he's not from Earth, so it's cool.
Sort of a
Which,
pan-European
which
thing. Yeah.
which was great for me. So basically, it's just a crappy London accent is what I ended up with, I think, for Zeb.
Well, so I just want to take a quick sidebar. You mentioned you did a voice in Dead Island, and I was looking at your IMDb credits, and there are 775 things you're credited with being in,
Yeah,
many of which are video games.
yeah,
And many of the video games, including The Last of Us Part 2, one of the biggest games this year,
yeah,
you're just listed as various voices. So I just want
yeah.
to say, first I want to ask, how does that happen? That because I know, like, you're not being cast as a main character. They just want you as Walla, like, like you're going to be different characters dying or whatever.
Yeah.
So first, I want to thank you because Gill and I are gamers and we play tons and tons of games every year, and you're like our constant companion in every game. I'll
Uh,
play a Call of Duty game, and someone next to me will be your voice, and they'll be like, "Come on, let's go over the ridge," and I'm
yeah.
like, "You got it, Steve."
It is
So I
always
mean,
fun for
that's
that
your
first
voice
moment.
really
Be like,
well, but we know you. We know it so well that I can tell instantly.
Yeah.
I did not. I do not think I noticed your voice in The Last of Us, but how does it happen? First of all, how did you get into the video game space? And second, how does it happen that you get these roles where you're just doing sort of various voices as opposed to main roles?
Uh, well, getting into video games, let me answer that part first. That was LucasArts. LucasArts gave me my first video game gig. It was Full Throttle, from
nice.
Was
way
that
back.
that was a pod racing game? Was that
It
what that
was
was?
motorcycles
Oh,
and
crazy.
thugs and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
And I played a guy named Sid, if I remember right. And my first scene was this guy riding a bike, and he's punching some other dude as he's going like 85 miles an hour. They're on bikes next to each other, and they're just punching the crap out of each other. That was the first thing that I booked, and that was LucasArts. And then they gave me the Dig, and then most of the Star Wars games. So I think the versatility factor is the reason that I'm hired a lot for video games, and that I can die. And a lot of that came from my anime training. I can die in a multitude of different ways without
Good at
completely
dying.
wrecking my voice as much as some people do. It's hurting more now that I'm older, but back in the day, I could scream for hours and it was fine. And that's what made me valuable in the video game industry, is that they need a lot of really projected, gnarly voices, creatures, soldiers, anything that's going to have some aggression behind it. And that was kind of my forte. And then, what was the other part of the question? I forgot the other part of the question.
How do you end up in all these games where you're just doing various characters where, you
Oh,
go
yeah.
into a day and you do 20 different voices? Like, how does that work? And like, you just seem like somebody that's often cast as a main character to me in a
Yeah.
lot of things, and you're very busy. So
Yeah.
how do you have the time, and how is it that you end up doing all these little things like this?
There are no little jobs as far as I'm concerned. I've never hit that one big thing that would sustain me like some people have, and I'm a grunt. I work a lot because I need to pay my bills, and so I have said yes to almost everything, with a few hentai exceptions, I think, uh, for the obvious reasons. But especially in a game like Last of Us, I was hired very specifically because they knew my creature work, and I can't remember the name of the character, but it was one of the really really pussy ones that shoots really awful shit.
Oh, like a
As
shambler or a bloater.
Shambler, that was it. That was
Shambler.
it.
You're the
You are the
shambler.
shambler, you
So
son of a bitch.
yeah, so I did a few sessions for those characters, for that and for a few other things, and I think the Shambler is the one that they really liked because it was just so gross. Because they wanted bile in the throat and
You're good at all that.
is that kind of crap, clicker
You're really good
sounds.
at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of that stuff, and then they layered it over. The guy who did the sound design just recently did an interview about that, and he talked about how many layers went into that thing. And I was just a little piece of that puzzle. I thought, oh my God, I'm the Shambler. No, I'm like this much of the Shambler. I'm like three little pus holes of the Shambler. But if you can do crap like that, you're going to work a lot in this industry. There, like D. Bradley Baker does a lot of that kind of stuff. Fred Tatasciore does a lot of that kind of stuff. And we always see the same people. It's always the same group of people. We've done a lot of TV shows, horror films, anything that requires really disgusting body sounds. There is just kind of a small handful of us that's right in our wheelhouse, and we're comfortable doing it, and we can do it for hours.
So you're a
So
key part of the gross sounds community.
yeah, and that's kept me working for a long time. That was actually the bulk of my career for many, many years, was doing that before I really started having to act. And in fact, by the time I got to Cowboy Bebop, I was terrified because I actually had to learn how to act. That was part of the fear with all that, is that I had to act, and in my own speaking voice, which is really scary. Doing all the weird crap. That stuff is fun and easy and playtime, but actually having to convey real emotion with my own speaking voice is vulnerable and scary.
Well, so that leads me into what you were saying, in terms of the auditions and all the work that goes into just getting these roles, even
Yeah.
as an established actor. So, what is your typical? And I'm always amazed when you tell me, like, yeah, I'm gonna knock out this VO. I've got like 20 auditions to do for the next 2 hours, and then I'll take care of you. Like, I'm just always amazed
Yeah.
at the amount of auditioning work that you still have to put in every single day. So, could you just take us through a regular cycle in your normal day, either pre or post coronavirus? Either one doesn't matter.
It's gotten even crazier now since the virus hit because we get auditions in at all hours, 7 days a week. Last Saturday night at 11:30, I got in 6 auditions that were due on Sunday,
Holy
and
crap.
Christ.
it's just the way it's working now. So it's more intense. It used to be back in the old days that we would go into the agency, we'd read, and they would upload it on tape. Uh, well, actually, it was before even uploads. They would mail the tapes or have them messengered, and there would be like a week turnaround for auditions. Now, sometimes we have auditions where we have a 1 hour turnaround, and if you don't make that deadline, that's it. Somebody else is going to get the job. The world has just gotten a lot smaller. Everybody's got a home studio. So the auditions come in fast and furious. Some days I'll have nothing. It's kind of rare. Other days I'll have 20 auditions that'll come in the night before, and most of them are due the next day. A lot of them with research too, for either voice matches or some similarity of essence of a known character, or dialects, or a type that I might not have played before. And sometimes it's 3 or 4 pages that I have to read through for each character before I can even get to the audition. So it's a really time-consuming process. And then I'm a really slow editor too, and I try to edit out my breaths and all that stuff too. So auditions, in some cases, can be an 8 hour day just doing auditions, to get them done well and out. And I always have the approach with auditions that I learned from Jack Angel, one of the old time greats in our industry, who said the audition is the job. And he said, if you book the job from that, phenomenal, but do everything that you would put into that job as though you have already booked it in every single audition, even if the character has a 30-second lifespan. And so I always do my auditions broadcast quality to the best of my ability. It's a little harder when I'm traveling, which I'm not right now, but I have a full Pro Tools rig that I bring on the road with me. You guys have experienced that because I've actually recorded from the
Yeah.
road before.
Oh, yeah.
But they're always broadcast quality as though there was a possibility they could actually lift it from my audition and put it on the air somewhere, which happens too occasionally in commercials.
So what
So
percentage of out of if you're doing that many auditions, what would you say as a rough guesstimate the percentage of actual jobs you get is from as compared to the number of auditions you're doing? What's
I'd
like a
say,
good rate?
yeah, I'd say probably, wow, 1 gig for every 30 to 50 auditions.
That's
I think
crazy.
that's about my rate, and that's actually not as good as it used to be. But there's so many more people doing this now that we're in the pool with probably 500 other actors for most gigs. So that's to my mind that's still a pretty good booking rate. It's
And
okay, but
how often are you being called because someone knows your work and wants I know that there's a percentage of auditions that are just your agent or that a VO place will just put your name in with a list of 20 other names.
hmm
So I know about all that, but like as far as someone calling you and saying, I want this guy's voice, how often does that happen?
uh, well, where I'm booked straight off of my body of work, that happens maybe twice a year.
Gotcha.
Uh, and if I am a request by a casting director, that happens maybe every 2 or 3 months. So it's not as often as you would think. We go into the pot like everybody else. And even if I am a client request, I'm still up against at least 20 or 30 other guys
Yeah.
for the same gig, and sometimes ladies now too, and sometimes non-binary. It's open to everyone. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I like that. I actually don't mind having to work for it because it keeps me sharp and keeps me humble. I think
Yeah.
too. You
Yeah.
don't want to get cocky in this business. So
And so so if you're, obviously during COVID, you're doing way more of this quick turnaround stuff. And I know that pre-COVID, a big part of my understanding of what you did was going to cons
mhm.
and making appearances and taking your rig on the road. And so you were doing the voiceover work on the road, but you were also going to cons as, to appear for Rebels or Bebop or Toonami or any number of voice gigs.
hmm
So that income is all pretty much gone, I would
hmm
imagine. So how is it changing your day to day besides what you talked about in terms of quick turnaround to be working under quarantine?
Yeah, the whole world changed so fast. It was really weird. I was doing 20 to 30 cons a year, full weekends and sometimes longer. So that was a huge part of my life and a huge part of my income. And you're right, it just dried up completely, as did a lot of the work, which is finally starting to come back now. So it was a big financial hit all the way around. That was okay. I'm actually kind of enjoying being home. It's really
I was going
nice.
to say, are you enjoying the time off? Because I've
Yeah.
never known you not to be just killing yourself with work. I mean, you take vacations, and we're always mad when you do because we're
Yeah.
always like, "Oh, we need to get Steve to read this thing." Oh no, he's gone for the next 2 weeks. I'm always like, "Fuck you,
Yeah.
Steve."
But I
But
brought my rig with me. I did it on the road too.
but you
Yeah.
deserve it. Let's be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed at how much you were working. So I was going to
Yeah.
ask, are you enjoying not being able to grind?
Yeah, dude. Well, I still feel like I'm grinding. It's shocking that I could get all this stuff done and travel because I feel like I'm still doing the same amount of work and auditions and stuff as I was before. Um, it's just different. It's just a different world. The other thing that's different for me is setting up different studio options here. This little rig that I'm coming to you from now is what I do my webinar classes from, and I used to do that out of my pro studio at my house, which I just sold. With COVID, I couldn't bring guests in anymore. I have
Yeah.
guest teachers that would come in, and I haven't been able to bring them in months, and that was kind of the only reason I was holding on to that house. So I sold that, and now I do all of my VO sessions out of a closet here at Mary's place.
Wow.
that I converted. It has foam in it and stuff, but it's still super hot and sweaty in there and really small. But I get great sound. That's where I've been doing Toonami stuff for years and years now. So the sound quality here.
Is that why you always record naked?
Yes, that is why I record naked. It's just the sweat factor. It's
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah, and also just because I feel it informs Tom's decisions.
Yeah, he
So
feels free.
Yeah.
he's free. Yeah, yeah.
Tom doesn't wear pants, so you don't wear pants.
Exactly, exactly. I live the life. I wear the helmet. All of it, dude. All of it.
So, as far as Tom and Toonami, so clearly in my world, when I've seen you in public, we've been at mostly at anime cons, a little bit at Comic Con.
Hmm.
So you will get noticed occasionally from your work with various Star Wars stuff
Hmm.
at Comic Con.
Hmm.
And then at anime cons, obviously the main thing is always going to be Bebop.
Yeah.
Do you remember, and if you don't, it's okay, but do you remember the first time a fan came up to you or that you were at a con and someone said, "Hey, you're the voice of Tom from Toonami," and like talk to you about that?
I don't remember when the first. I don't remember the first time that happened. It was pretty early on, though. It was. I think it was when we really started doing a lot of the speeches,
Uh-huh,
which I
yeah.
guess was pretty early on.
Yeah, it
Because you
was.
were doing those with Sonny too before me.
Yeah, we started them with Moltar actually,
Yeah.
but we really ramped them up with you. We did do several with Sunny, and then we really ramped it up when you came on board.
Yeah, it was. I think it was right after Fall Down Seven Times, Get Up Eight. That was the one that seemed to resonate with people more than any other throughout all these
Gill wrote
years.
that one.
Yeah, it's so good. I do that live at conventions just because
Um,
people cry. It really hits something. You touched into something deep there, Gil. It's
It's all you.
pretty. It's really
Ironic
cool.
because Gill himself is a robot with no emotion, but
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but
it's
You gotta
crazy.
fake it till you make it.
yeah, he's able to at least convey that
So
by
so
faking great acting.
when you go to cons now, are you most often being booked for? Is it mostly like career retrospective type stuff, or is there still a very big interest in your work in anime, your work with Toonami, or is it now transitioning more to Star Wars, or is it sort of 50-50?
It's all of it, really. I mean, there are everything crosses over now too. Anime used to be just anime. Now
Yeah.
it's anime and video games, or there's some crossover because of so many shows that do have references. Rick and Morty being a great example.
Yeah.
They're pop culture cons, pretty much all of them now. And so some are a little more specific. If I go with a cast like for Star Wars Celebration or something, obviously the emphasis is going to be on that. Anime Expo used to be specifically anime, but now it's just as much for video games and the rest of the body of work.
Yeah.
And now with these big pop culture conventions all over the world, the fan bases cross all barriers. Even people bring up 7-Eleven cups and have me sign that. I mean, it's crazy.
Crazy.
It's really crazy, and everybody's got their favorite thing that I don't remember that
Yeah.
changed their
I mean,
life.
and I think people don't understand, and Gil and I experienced this in a much smaller scale, but they ask you about like, what's your favorite moment of any Toonami show? And we're like, we've shown like 400 shows. We can't
Yeah,
tell you that. I don't know. And
yeah.
looking at your IMDb, you've done 775 that are listed, and there's
Hmm.
probably more. So I'm sure you don't remember much of any of it.
No,
One
not
thing,
really.
so you're listed as being in The Mandalorian, but it's not as voice. Were you actually on camera in The Mandalorian?
No, I did some scratch tracks for a couple of characters on Mandalorian, and I'm still not convinced that they kept me in there because I couldn't hear myself. But a couple of my friends said that they're sure that that was me. I
Yeah, I
don't
want to go
know.
back and look at that episode. It says it's chapter 5, you're the spaceport operator,
Yeah, it's just a voice. There
but
is
it
a
didn't.
disembodied voice, but I'm not sure that that's me. I think that might have been an incorrect labeling, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm in there somewhere. I did some scratch stuff with Dave when he was
you're
just
Baby
putting.
Yoda. You can admit that you're Baby Yoda.
We were just looking at it
Yeah.
before, and that was one of the few that didn't specifically list out voice. We were like,
Yeah, I mean,
is
it's
it?
tricky with the Mandalorian because the Mandalorian himself is basically a voice performance
It
matched
is.
to a different person's physical performance.
Yeah.
Um, so, in terms of having said all that about not remembering everything you worked on, is there anything in your body of work, whether it's because of your performance or because you saw it, and because I know you barely have time to watch anything you work on,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe you did finally see it years later or played it or whatever that you're particularly proud of? Is there something that stands out as like, you know what, I did a good job, or you know what, that was a really good movie or game or show or whatever?
Uh, there's a few, I think. Star Wars Rebels, I'm really proud of.
I can tell, I can tell you rep Rebels pretty hard.
Yeah, well, I'm a big old Star Wars fan anyway, so I just love that, and the attention to detail in that show is just extraordinary. I love it also when I know that the animators are going to have budget and time to flesh out the characters visually using all of the material that we give them. And that's not always the case because of budgetary constraints. We'll give these amazing performances or, a lot of stuff to work with at least. And they just can't afford to put it all in. They can't
Yeah.
afford to animate that much movement or whatever. So with Rebels, they took everything that we did, every nuance, and they put us on video. And so a lot of our body mannerisms and facial mannerisms showed up in the characters, and that was really gratifying to be able to
Yeah.
flesh out something like that with a full story arc too.
Right.
Bebop was a little tougher for me to stomach just because I did it so long ago, and I only watched it end to end for the first time last year.
Oh, wow.
And
You were probably critiquing your performance about
yeah, at first, the first couple episodes, I went, "Oh, I think I did a better take at that. Maybe I didn't. I don't know." And I would have made different choices in terms of dialogue if I had thought to do that back then, or if they had allowed me to do that back then. I don't remember what the case was. That's a little bit harder for
You
me
can
to.
blame Mary for some of that, though.
Yes.
I blame her for all of
To
it.
the
I was
left and be
thinking-
like, why didn't you direct me better?
Yeah, I blame Mary for all of it. No, but when that was only the first couple episodes, and then when I watched it all the way through, I went, "Oh, you know what? This is pretty good. This is really pretty good."
Yeah.
And especially at that time because we had no idea what the hell we were doing. That was Mary's first directing gig too, and
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
and what the performances that she was able to get out of everybody were just extraordinary. Because
Yeah.
we were all coming from crappy anime prior to that, and some of the people that were cast were struggling with their roles, frankly, and she pulled out some amazing performances from those people.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to Mary.
yeah, oh man, she's amazing, and she's still an amazing director. She's doing like AAA animation now.
I know
it's
she is.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know she is. So can you tell us what made you decide? So you have not every viewer knows this, you have a Toonami tattoo.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it is right there.
Gil and I have been at Toonami since the beginning. I co-created Toonami. I don't have a Toonami tattoo. So what made you, and I have lots of tattoos.
Yeah, I know you
So
do.
what made you decide I want to get a Toonami tattoo?
All right, I got to be honest about this. All of my other tattoos, I spent a lot of time thinking about.
This is a good setup.
It's going to be good.
I was in New Orleans at a convention and went out drinking one night. And there were a bunch of us who, at one point, it was probably 2 a.m, and a bunch of us stumbled into a tattoo parlor, and a couple of people decided to get tattoos. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'll get one, but I don't know what to get." And then I thought, "Oh, wait, Toonami. I don't have Toonami." And I was going to get it on my chest, like right where Tom
Oh,
wears it.
nice. Yeah.
But I couldn't, but I was so drunk I couldn't remember which side it was on or if it was in the middle because it did change from year to year too.
Yeah.
And I couldn't decide where to put it. So I went, "All right, just this arm's open, just do it there." And it was just going to be like this little tiny thing. And the guy goes, "No, you got to do it bigger," like every tattoo artist says.
Yeah.
And then we did the original outline for it. And then he goes, "Oh, you got to shade this, dude." And I went, "Okay, yeah, go for it, man. Shade it. Make it 3-dimensional." And so I had no idea what the hell he was doing. And I walked out of there with this. And I love it. I'm really.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just curious. Yeah. What made you decide to get it? I mean, we're really happy that you got it, but
Yeah.
we also were like, wow, he likes Toonami a lot. you
I
know?
do. Well, Toonami was a huge part of my life and still is, dude. It was transformational for me, honestly. Back in those days, Toonami gave me a sense of confidence that I never thought I'd have in any career. Because you guys trusted me with it, honestly, and because it's lasted so long, and even more importantly, because of the effect that it's had on so many people in a positive way, and brought people back from some really dark places.
Yeah.
By like being a friend in the dark for them every
Yeah.
Saturday night.
Yeah. I like that phrase, being a friend in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, the stories that I hear at conventions have made me cry over and over and over again. And to be part of something like that is something I never expected. I wanted to go into science, or I wanted to possibly be a doctor because I wanted to do something to be of service. And I
Mhm.
thought, all right, well, voiceover is the only thing I'm good at, so I guess I'll just volunteer my time somewhere and help puppies or something. But the after effect of this so many years later and moving forward, helping generations of people cope with rough times, especially like times like this. I know that we're helping people right now. Uh, has fulfilled me in a way that I didn't think was possible from doing this kind of work. So I will always owe a deep sense of gratitude to you guys and Toonami and what you continue to bring to the world every week.
Thank you. We're lucky we found you to be the voice of our thoughts, because when
You
we
do a much
write
better job.
when we write stuff, we think of your voices in our head. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
it's a symbiotic thing at this point, I think.
Wow. Well, it's funny because I'm working on I'm possibly doing a book now, and a lot of it is coming from transcription from interviews that I've done before, and I was looking at my words written back to me, and
Yeah.
I think I'm really eloquent when I'm speaking, and on paper it looks like a 4-year-old wrote it with his butt. Um, but I've
It's a gift.
seen transcribed interviews from both of you, and you're both really eloquent, thoughtful speakers. So it's still astonishing to me. I was just thinking about this last night because I was working on a chapter last night, and I was thinking about how my words just don't tend to translate to the way I write, because I'm a much better writer. But you guys actually speak that way. You guys are,
I actually am thank you, but I'm a much better speaker than I am a writer myself.
yeah,
When it's different when when I'm writing for a character that I know, I can slot my brain into that thought pattern, and
yeah,
like it comes out. And when I'm writing Tom, or and I don't know how it works for Gill, but I would imagine it's similar. You get into the cadence of, well, this is how Tom talks.
right.
When I'm writing for myself, what I write on the page almost never matches the way I talk. It's
Isn't that
more like the
interesting?
way I think, which is
Yeah,
different than the way I talk.
yeah.
Um, I talk way better than I actually think, and Gil knows this because I've sent him scripts in my Yoda speak that I write, and he's always like, "This sentence doesn't make any sense." Um, but that's behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, you're totally right, and we experience the same dissonance, wouldn't you say, Gil?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, style wise, for me, writing is more like its way for me is more editing. Like in the beginning, I just try to barf out whatever I'm saying and just get it all out, and
Hmm.
then try and form it from there. And then speaking, obviously, that you don't really have that luxury to go back and be like, oh, I'm going to try that one again.
Yeah. Take two.
So yeah, it's writing wise for me is process is so much more in the editing, and in the beginning it's just like bang it out in 5 minutes, come back and look at it in an hour and be like, oh, that was awful, and then
Yeah.
it's like keep going, or it's like, oh, that's pretty close, or like this is too long, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to writing for Tom, we both are kind of at the point where we've been doing it for 20 years. So it's almost instinctive now. When we write something, we know if it feels wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, for the Forge and a lot of our last couple Total Immersion events, we've had a great guy helping us. Brendan Fletcher, who's a terrific comic book writer,
Hmm.
has helped us write those scripts. So we've come up with the story, and the first draft he's kind of banged out in terms of how things roll out and the characters, and then we
Hmm.
go back in and re-edit his dialogue. Very complicated process, but we know instinctively, and Brendan loves Toonami and knows Tom's voice really well, and even so we change 70% of the dialogue because we're like,
Really?
this is more what Tom would say.
Hmm.
So it's really just, for us, it's like another voice. It's like your voice, just different.
Hmm.
Um, but so moving away from Toonami talk and VO talk, I think people would like to know a little more about you as a person.
Uh-oh.
I know that you do a lot of animal advocacy. I know you're really tied into shelters, and or at least were for a number of years, bringing
Hmm.
animals into your home, and you're very passionate about saving animals, particularly dogs. So could you talk a little bit about your work with animals and what led you there and sort of what you're doing now?
Yeah, that's funny. I don't do the shelter stuff anymore because we ended up keeping so many animals that it kind of became a shelter, and they're all aging out now, which is
Yeah,
really
you have
rough.
like 9 dogs.
Yeah, well, my ex Trina, who is still my business partner, was the one who was actually working at the shelter, so I would help out
Yeah.
there from time to time, and they called us the foster flunkies because we just couldn't release
You
most
just
of the
failed every
animals.
time.
And at one point, we had like 8 or 9 animals at the house. It was ridiculous, and just the ones that nobody wanted. The animals didn't even want to be alive. I mean, we had this one cat named Ricky that was like this obese monster of a cat, this wide and this long, and he was blind and deaf and incontinent and would run into walls and just hated being alive. He was just done. And she just insisted that we save this animal's life and give him, some happy days. And he just, from the moment he got there, he goes, "Why, guys? Why? Come on, let me go." So we had a lot of those coming and going. I just sold my house and we just dumped his ashes. And the ashes for most of the animals is like this much. For Ricky's was
Right.
like this much. It was just this big pile of stupid old angry cat.
So now
Um,
if you're in a new place and it's much smaller, so you can't really do what you were doing before, and it sounds like it wasn't quite working.
well, I'm with a more reasonable person now too.
Yeah.
Mary loves animals. We have 2 cats and a dog here.
Yeah.
My dog Piddle is one of the old refugees from
Oh,
that
really?
from that old time. Yeah, there are 4 animals left from that pack. One of them is probably going to be passing in the next couple days. She's
Oh,
19 years
Sorry.
old. She's been done for a year. She's been surviving on one kidney or a piece of one kidney for a long time.
wow.
So she's just ready to go. Uh, but Mary's cats are about 7 years old. They're big old Maine Coons. And Piddle is a special needs dog. He had a brain tumor last year and heart problems. He's on like 5 different meds a day. And so thank God I'm home now with the pandemic
Right.
thing because he has very special needs. He has very special requirements. I have to take him out several times a day. And
Yeah.
I couldn't do that if I was traveling. So I'm really grateful to be able to be home and still do that for him.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
our animals at our house are super happy that we're home. They're like, "This is great. You're
yeah.
home every day now,"
It's going to be rough whenever the transition comes
Totally.
back.
Yeah, yeah, it will. It will for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing that I'm actually kind of glad that I'm away from the shelter experience because I felt like when we had 8 or 9 animals in the house, I could never give any of them enough attention, and I felt like I was actually uh, doing a disservice to them by not giving them the attention that they really wanted, and it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted for them. And so now having fewer animals, I really give them all the attention I've always wanted to, and I feel like I'm actually a better pet parent than I was. And
Yeah.
I still donate to shelters and do what I can, but my affiliation with them and my home fostering thing has really stopped. I just needed to. But we're going to
So
be moving to a place with acreage within the next year, I think, and we'll probably have a bunch of animals there. So I'll
nice.
get to try that out again in a different way.
Um, so, since we're talking about stuff you do outside of work, so much of your life, as with so many other people who work in media, is really revolving around your work.
Hmm.
Mine does, I know, Gill's does.
Hmm.
So, what do you do? What are some things you like to do, or some interests that don't involve work or voiceover or anything like that when
Mm.
you have downtime, other than sleeping and eating? And
Yeah.
you know,
Honestly, my favorite thing to do is just to get outside. I I love hiking. I haven't been able to do that because they closed most of the trails around here. But fortunately, we have a backyard. I swim every day and hanging out with the pets too. Me and Piddle just sit out there and hang out. He's actually, I call him my coach because when I'm in the pool swimming laps, he'll bark at me and run around the pool. And if I stop, he'll get really pissed off if I haven't done my laps. So I love to do that. I love to just get outside and commune with the animals, just sit and meditate, listen to nature.
can you send us a picture of Piddle so we can put it up on the screen
Oh
just
yeah,
for that
yeah, here.
story?
Yeah, he's
Send
awesome.
Gil a picture of Piddles because I think people deserve to see what kind of dog is Piddles. Do you have any idea?
He is he's a Chihuahua mixed, and I'm not sure what he's mixed with.
Yeah.
but he's awesome. Let me
I
see.
have a Chihuahua Westie mix, pretty hilarious. Mixing a
Chihuahua
terrier,
Westie. Wow, that's great.
mixing a terrier and a Chihuahua. She's actually a super chill dog, which is crazy because we thought she'd be hyper.
Here, let me see
So
this.
I think what we'll do is we've got a few more questions and then we can wrap this up. I think we're going to take it back to a couple questions about voice acting that you've probably answered before, but I think people will want to hear.
Okay.
So if you weren't a voice actor, and so your dream of being a marine biologist didn't pan out, you're working in marketing for a film company. Now,
Yes.
say the voiceover break never happened. What do you imagine you might be doing now? Would you still be in a band trying to make it work? Do you think you'd be working at a film company? Do you think you'd be doing something totally different? Would you be leading nature hikes?
I That's a really great question. I don't know. I think hang on one second. I'm just sending this picture.
Yeah, no
Is it
worries.
okay if I text it to you, Gil?
Totally.
Okay. Oh, now it won't load. Oh, this is going awfully well.
Text quality photos will work just fine for the pre-flight audience.
Okay. Oh, here it goes. Okay, here's the first one that I could find. There we go. All right. Hopefully it'll come through in a second. Um, I think if I wasn't doing this, I probably would have pursued music. That was my first love, and I didn't really have the wherewithal to practice 8 hours a day, like I think the best
Yeah,
musicians do.
yeah.
Um, so I probably still wouldn't have been great at it. I probably would have done okay. But the music business was just so awful. People were
It's
so
still awful.
nasty. Oh
It's
God.
it's still
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, the
And
people were
for
just
music, what kind of music you played in an R&B band?
yeah.
What kind of music do you like listening to? Are you a rock guy? Are you a metal guy? Are you sort of omni everything guy?
Omni everything, yeah, from classical to jazz to rock to reggae to hip hop to blues. My style, I just started taking a songwriting class, so my style tends to be uh, more acoustic
Mm,
oriented, probably leaning towards like Eagles, that kind of thing.
gotcha.
That's where I started in music, and I love acoustic instruments and harmonies and real musicians. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning. And I just wrote a song for this class, and it really kind of goes in that direction.
Nice.
But I love playing blues. I love rock. I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan back in the day, especially the old classic
Of course.
stuff. But I listen to everything. Peter Gabriel. I'm a huge fan of Peter Gabriel.
I was
Couldn't
actually I've been on a Peter Gabriel kick myself lately. Actually, I bought like a box set of all of his albums and I was just going through them. Yeah.
It's just amazing that I listen to stuff that really touches the soul for me.
Yeah.
And and there are newer artists too. I mean, I've done a lot of work with Logic recently,
Yeah.
and he's literally half my age, and his
Yeah.
message is he's amazing the way he connects with people. It's really
Yeah.
amazing that he's a hip hop artist that inspires peace, love, and positivity. Who knew
Yeah.
that was going to happen? It's pretty cool. And I don't listen to everything that he does, but some of his albums I bump that shit, man. And I listen to old bebop stuff. I listen to
Oh,
old
the
blues.
Yoko Kano music.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Or
love
no,
Yoko Kano. Yeah.
you meant actual jazz bebop, not the show
Oh
bebop
no, the
soundtrack.
show bebop.
Okay.
No, I meant Yoko Kano
Yeah.
very
Yoko
specifically.
Kano,
Yeah,
she's a genius. Yeah.
yeah,
So, in terms of, you're in a position now where you're teaching and you're able to be a mentor, and clearly that's something you enjoy and want to keep doing.
yeah.
When you were when you were young, what was the best professional advice someone gave you, either as a voice actor or even before that? Was there someone who in your life told you, like, whatever the thing is, you mentioned the one piece of advice you got about treat every audition like it's the job.
Hmm.
Have you ever gotten any other piece of advice that felt like key to your understanding of who you were and how to do something?
Yes, and I got this piece of advice from so many people. I can't even give you one person who initiated it in my brain, but it stuck. And it was do what you love, and then do everything else that you need to do so
Yeah.
that you can continue to do that thing, whether you're getting paid for it or not. And that's one of the first things I impart to my students too, because life is too short, and there's so many people who are, working jobs that they hate, which I have done. I had done that for decades. But
Yeah.
I also found these other things that made me happy. I found my music. I found the animals. I found outside. I found voiceover ultimately, and I did those things too. And as long as you make sure that you include that in your life, it really improves the quality of your life and your
Yeah.
health, I think, too.
For sure. You
Yeah.
One of
live
my
a lot longer when you're not constantly eating shit all day and in a
yeah.
bad mood, you know?
When I have some friends who ended up in big careers, doctors, lawyers, very professional, stressful careers. They went into it originally loving it, and then they realized that, oh man, this sucks. But I'm
Yeah.
making a lot of money at it. I've supported my family at it, and they don't have time or are not willing to dedicate the time to doing something that does make them happy, and they're miserable, and they've got health issues,
Yeah.
and it breaks my heart because everybody has the potential and deserves to be happy,
Yeah.
and we should all seek that. I think so. That's the
Yeah.
best advice.
I
That is
think
good advice.
that is great advice. I think people don't talk enough about too what you're talking about, which is you can actually achieve something that was a dream
Yeah.
and that did fulfill you and find at a certain point that you have changed or it has changed and it's no longer fulfilling.
Hmm.
And a lot of people, we are told as we grow up that, like, you've got the thing you're good at, go do that thing.
Hmm.
But people are more than one thing. They're good at more than one thing, and they can
Sure.
change and they can be tired of doing something that was fulfilling and have to find something new. And I think we still don't talk enough about that,
Mm-mm.
because that's normally a concern for older people. And, the narrative is usually driven by younger people, understandably.
Yeah. But also taking risks too. I think a lot of people are taught not to take risks.
For
You
sure.
have to be conservative. You have to play it safe, and subsequently they deny themselves from joy by
Yeah.
doing that. They don't realize that the other side of that fear is discovery and potential and amazing things. So
Yeah.
I've seen it so much in my family, especially in the older members of my family, that just kind of stopped, gave up, and
Yeah.
thought, well, this is as good as it gets. And it's
Yeah.
like, guys, come on, try something, do anything, do something that scares you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I became scuba certified 2 years ago. I've been terrified of that my whole life,
Yeah.
fascinated and terrified by it. But hell yeah, man, I'm gonna go skydiving when things open up again. I want to
Yeah.
try new stuff all the time. Got to take those risks.
Well, I think so. We're gonna end. I think we have one more question, and we'll wrap it up because I think we've gone about an hour. And this is probably a question you get asked a lot. So if you don't have an answer, that's okay. But if you do, let us know. Um, when you're out there in the world and you have some downtime and you're enjoying some media, do you ever run across a character or role where you think, "Oh man, I wish I would have got that one"?
Uh,
Like where you're just jealous, not necessarily because of that doesn't mean you're not happy for whatever performer got it, but if you're just like, oh, I would have really torn that apart, man, I would have really dug into that. Is there a role like that that's like the one that got away, or
Yeah, I don't think that way typically. I'm so grateful for everything that I've been able to do. It so far exceeded any expectations that I had that I still can't believe it. I live in gratitude every day.
gotcha?
But the one character that I thought that I would have been right for without trying too hard would have been Batman from early
Oh
on,
yeah,
just
Yeah.
because I feel like that's pretty much my natural wheelhouse.
yeah,
And then I hear Kevin Conroy. Then I heard Kevin Conroy do it, and I went, "Oh no, that's my Batman. I'm good with that. It's good." And
yeah,
especially at this stage of my career, and I also impart this to my students all the time, is that when other people book the role, there's a reason for it. Might not be a good reason, might not even be a logical reason, but there's a reason they booked it, and chances are they're going to become your friend or your colleague at some point. So why not cheer them on?
right,
And don't limit yourself to that role, because if you do, and then if you're all bummed out about that role, that's going to close off your mind to the other possibilities out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation with so many people who have booked really big things and not booked really big things, and they were up side by side with the person who actually got it in the final callbacks. And almost every single time, every one of those people will say, I'm really glad they got that role because it allowed me to do this that came right at the same time or right after. And you don't have that insight when it's happening in that moment, especially for
right,
newer actors. It's like, oh man, I would have done so much better. You suck. especially if it's a celebrity that, gets
Sure.
stunt casted into something and they do suck. It's hard to celebrate them. But it's also brought more awareness to what we do when a celebrity gets booked for something like that, and it might open the door for future opportunities for us.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, I there was something that I think Hugh Jackman ended up doing some game version of Wolverine at some point, and the fans were going, "Well, that should have been you, man." And I said, "No, he was the right choice for this incarnation of it, dude." And
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to have to work out that hard to do that. Fuck that. So no, that's the other piece of advice that I could give to anybody starting out is just be grateful for what is and let go of what you think you should be doing because it's never going to be what you think it should be.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good as place to end as any.
I
Thank
hate
you.
stopping. I miss you guys. Yeah. Can I just ask you guys something?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
have two questions for you guys, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. How did you two originally meet? Because you've been
Uh,
friends forever now.
At
we
we're at
we
Toonami.
yeah, we met because Gill got hired full time to work on Toonami. He was working for Space Ghost Coast to Coast as an
Oh yeah.
intern, and
Yeah,
then
I
when
got I got hired as a non-paid intern right out of college, and was working in what was then the production department, which was basically like Lazo and programming, and then Lazo and production at Cartoon Network.
Wow.
And Sean Akins actually went to this. He and I went to the same high school. We didn't know each other then. He was a couple years older, and our schools merged later on. But we had a lot of the same friends, and he was like, "Oh, you should come work on this thing that I'm starting up too." So I was doing Space Ghost and Toonami, and then got hired on full time to do Toonami. And then Jason was at TNT at the time.
yeah,
But we,
I got hired to work at TNT as a writer producer, and Sean is the person who got me the job. And when I got hired, he started working at Cartoon Network and was developing what would become Toonami. So I would work during the day at TNT and then go downstairs to Cartoon Network in the afternoon. And because TNT's training at the time was literally like, just watch everyone for a couple months, and then we'll start giving you work. And I was just like, what? So I was raring to go, and I had nothing to do. So every afternoon, I would go downstairs, and Sean and I would bounce around ideas about what became Toonami. Like we would make up lists of names. We would try to think of like what kind of host, what kind of cartoons, And so then I started freelancing for Toonami at night and working for TNT during the day. So I would only see Gill. Gill was full-time Toonami. I was part-time for a long time, for like 2 years.
Hmm.
I would only see Gill walking across the quad. And I don't think you remember, I don't know that you saw Gill when he looked like this, but he used to have this huge, disgusting beard. And he had really long red hair, really thick, long red hair, and did
Wow.
not wear glasses.
Wow.
So he looked like a mountain man. So I would see this mountain man hippie kid crossing the quad, and God knows what he thought I looked like. And we'd be like, hello, person that works on the same thing I work at, but we wouldn't
Wow.
talk. And I don't
Yeah.
remember, I mean, it was really not, I don't think, Gil, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't until I think I hung out with you when we were at Krog Street and Johnny and I were cutting stuff at night, and we would come and all play video games together. That was the first time I really spent time around you, like a period of time.
yeah, because the hours then, like the day would be wake up at like 11 a.m. I would call Sean and say, "What time are we going to work today?" And he was like, "I don't know, like noon or one." We would go and immediately go eat lunch, and then not
Wow.
actually start work until like 2, and then we would work till like 9 or 10. And then when Johnny and Jason were cutting at night, they would come in because Johnny was working at CNN at the time. So they would each leave their other network job and get there at like 6. So we had like that sort of middle time of hanging out. And then eventually they'd be like, "You guys got to get the fuck out of here because we're never going to actually start. And we got to go home and go to bed so we can wake up the next morning and
And I had,
go
at
to
the
our real job."
I had
Oh,
a daughter pretty young, so I was like, I got to be home by 3, man, because I got to get up at 6:30 when my kid wakes up.
God.
But that's when we started hanging out. And then when I got hired full time on Toonami is when we really started sort of becoming, I would say, friends.
Yeah.
Um,
And how have you maintained that friendship for all these years? Because I'm sure there must have been rough times too. Because you guys have always seemed to really get along well, and you give each other shit all the time. But I imagine there had to be some negotiation throughout the years.
I'm just gonna put most of it on Gill. He's a very, very even keel, like calm presence who's almost always able to diffuse any kind of situation and
Oh,
puts up with a lot of shit without breaking.
yeah.
You can't hang out with me if you're not willing to put up with a lot of shit without breaking. Ask my wife or my daughter. But so I'm just going to say, I think mostly it's because Gil's just a wonderful partner who's just one of the most supportive people I've ever met.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the impression that I got.
I
didn't know
agree.
if that was real. You agree? I didn't know if any of that was real, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
I mean, I think Jason and I have a lot of the same sensibilities and care about a lot of the same things and just have a lot of shared common interests. And then I think it's always like, you can always tell when we and the people we shoot stuff with are traveling together, a little less so now that we've mellowed in old age, but like we would all go home and our spouses and significant others would be like, why are you being such a dick? And it's like, you're just so used to the trial by fire of hanging out with everybody. You're just like, oh yeah, I got to turn this off sometimes. This is
Yeah. I mean, we would go on trips and all we did for like weeks at a time would be wake up and bust each other's balls all day long, all night long. So when you get home to your significant other, you're still in that mode and they're like, whoa, 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 slow down. And you're like, oh, right, I can't act like this all the time. But I think Gill and I are similar enough that we see a lot of things from the same point of view, but different enough that we'll approach things from a slightly different angle. So we'll be able to argue our way through, differences. Like he'll write something or a game review and I might disagree with his rating and we'll have like back and forth about it. But I think we usually reach a point where we both kind of feel like a good middle ground was reached. I think that's always the key, right? I mean,
yeah. And I think it's also that like we both care about things, but I think you've got to know what to let go of and not like not be constantly fighting for everything. It's like you got to know when to pick your battles and when it's important and when it's like, who gives a shit about that anyway? Like that's fine, whatever.
Right.
And it's what you said, Steve. It's holding on to gratefulness. It's realizing, I think Gill has the same attitude, and you I'm sure you would say the same thing about actors that you have known. Not everybody has this attitude, but
true.
It's keeping that attitude of saying, we could have real jobs. We could be digging ditches. We could be working in food service. We could be doing things that don't make us happy, where we don't get to spend other people's money and make fun things and play all day and be able to reach out and touch people in an important way to them. We're incredibly lucky to be able to do that. And so remembering that every day or trying to stay in that space does help you. It helps things roll off your back more. And you just, it's,
and Jason's obviously a really good friend, but he's also a really good boss in terms of like, if you want to do something and it's not like there's not money for it, like it's basically like, yeah, do whatever you want. Just don't make it shitty. Do a good job. And that's pretty much Jason's business, like managerial style is, yeah, do it that way, but don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Then lets you sink or swim on.
Gives you that rope. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. There's too few bosses like that out there, I think. Wow.
So yeah, don't fuck it up is going to be the name of Jason's memoir, I think.
Don't fuck it.
Yeah, they put that on my gravestone. I'd be fine.
Is he sitting in fire?
Did you have another question, or did we answer it?
No, you answered it for me. That was cool. I just wondered because I don't think I'd ever asked you guys that before. And
no, most people don't. I mean, I think we come as a unit for most people at work anyway, in our work lives.
Yeah.
Because we include each other on so many of our decisions. So I think they don't even question it. It's just like it's the way it always has been.
But that level of respect is, I think, rare in in business and in personal
Oh, I
relationships.
don't respect Gill. Let's be
Okay,
clear.
well, you don't have to
Yeah,
say
I
it out
didn't.
loud.
I thought you meant you respect you, Steve. Yeah, obviously.
No,
If
no,
it's
no, no,
Jason.
no,
No,
no.
that's not.
That's not even. I wasn't even going to expect an answer to that.
um,
But I had always wondered that, and you guys are inspirational to a lot of us out there for the longevity of a friendship that has continued to be able to create amazing things. So
well, I truly don't feel
great.
that what Toonami would still be around if Gill and I weren't able to get along so well and be good creative partners. I truly don't think, because it is still, and we're totally grateful to be doing it, but it is still a ton of work all the
Yeah.
time. And Toonami fans expect the best at all
Hmm.
times, as well they should. They deserve it.
Yep.
And they keep us very honest, but it is a shit ton of work, which is why no other blocks like Toonami exist anymore, because
Yep.
people just don't have the stamina.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have the stamina if I was doing it alone. So I'm grateful to Gill and everyone else on the team. You've met almost all of them at this point. But
Unbelievable crew who have been there for many, 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 many years too. So
Yeah.
yeah, if
I
we
mean,
weren't all pretty dedicated at doing a good job for other people,
yeah,
we
yeah.
would never have lasted this long. And honestly, a key part is the thing you talked about. It's meeting people and having someone. The first time you meet someone and they tell you, I was going to kill myself, and I watched that Tom speech, and it made me stop and think, and I truly believe I'm only here because of you. Or the first time somebody tells you, I used to sit and watch Toonami with my brother, and we didn't understand each other or get along at all, and through watching Toonami we were able to hang out with each other and spend time together, and he's not here anymore, and I'm
hmm,
eternally grateful. Like, when you hear even one story like that, let alone as many as we've heard,
hmm,
you realize that what you do has value to
yeah,
other people. And it's a great thing that I wish we could give that gift to everyone, because
yeah,
it truly is great. All of us on this call are going to die knowing we did something that meant something to another person.
yeah,
And it is such a peace that you have in yourself, that you know that no matter what happens in your life, that thing happened. You know what
hmm,
I mean? And I think once you have someone tell you that at a con, you start taking things real fucking seriously.
yep,
Yeah. I mean, it was a big moment. I mean, because we would go to conventions, but we weren't having Toonami panels. We were working on other stuff. So like, it really was more seeing on Twitter and then going to conventions after it came back on Adult Swim. Because like in the original Cartoon Network days, in the very beginning, you couldn't even watch Cartoon Network in Atlanta where Cartoon Network was. It
Yeah.
wasn't on the cable
so
channel.
crazy.
So you couldn't see it. And it was just like, I mean, we get letters eventually, we get art, and obviously you were making an impact on people, but not
Yeah,
to that extent. And I think that having everyone on the team see that definitely helps keep motivated. And there's everyone in our department basically works really hard on some aspect of Toonami all the time to keep it going,
hmm,
and doesn't, I mean, technically wouldn't need to. I mean, other than the fact that everybody works for Jason and he's the boss and he would make you do it. But like, that's not what people necessarily are getting paid to do.
yeah,
And even within the network, like a lot of times people don't necessarily think about Toonami in the same way they think about another Adult Swim show, just because we've been doing everything for so long.
hmm,
And you're just like, yeah, like the fact that everybody has cared for so long to continue to do such a good job. I mean,
hmm,
we couldn't do it without everybody else kicking ass all the time. I mean, we certainly
right,
can't edit everything well, let alone just even physically do it, and get all the stuff on, and just the sheer volume of work. I mean, it's a full-time job in and of itself, and it's not the biggest part of any of our jobs.
it's so
Yeah.
crazy. It's so crazy. Well, and you are leaving this pay it forward kind of legacy out there too, because I have heard from many fans that have told me that, especially from some of the inspirational speeches, that they feel like they mattered. And when somebody feels like that, that's going to be contagious. They're going to, even if they pass that on to one other person in their life, they're
Yeah.
still doing something of value that they might not have done before. So this extends so far beyond the reach that any of us are even aware of.
Yeah.
And we just
Truly,
don't know
Steve,
what we
we're
don't.
we're the real heroes.
That's true, yeah. But we don't know what that ripple. We honestly don't know what that ripple effect is, and I think
Yeah,
we
Yeah.
need that now more than ever. So thank
for
you guys
sure.
for continuing this on.
And thank you for
Yeah.
continuing with us.
Yeah, no one would remember the speech that I read out loud to the people of America.
You might be surprised, dude. But please keep letting me do it.
I think that's a good place to stop.
All right.
We can't give each other real hugs, but virtual hug.
Yeah, man.
And
love you guys.
Love you too.
Love you too.
And thank you for coming and being on with us. And please, those of you who are watching, we'll be back next week with the voice of Sarah, Dana Swanson, who's going to tell us how she got into this industry and what it's like to be the voice of Sarah. And can we put your Twitter handle on here, Steve?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So we'll put Steve's Twitter handle on the screen there. So please follow Steve on Twitter. He talks about all kinds of fun stuff, his work, his day, his life, everything from what he's doing to what he likes. So check him out there. And you can check myself out at ClarkNova1. You can check Gill out at Stupid Gill. And thanks for watching.